I've been starting off with the anecdote that kind of got the ball rolling on this idea, this concept. For me, I just had more recently become obsessed with my own obsession with James Bond. I loved those movies when I was like 10, and it's like, half of that didn't even make sense to me. Like, I was just so into them, and I watched all of them.
Yes.
Um, and I've been trying to kind of wrap my head around it. And, as I grew up and came out and found like a community, there have been a lot of people I've talked to that also had similar feelings about the Bond series at a young age. A lot of queer folks, a lot of folks in the community. And I was just like, whoa, what is it to that? And I of course realized that James Bond is far from the only example of, like, especially pre-internet, things that we were drawn to maybe implicitly, that made us feel seen in certain ways before we even knew we had this community. So that's kind of what this is meant to get into, if that makes sense.
Can you explain for me what that James Bond reference is to, was like,
Yeah,
in terms of relatability for.
absolutely. Like, I don't know that I had I don't know that I would have, I still am not quite there, but I don't know that I would have had the tools to talk about it until I got into this series and have talked to others and have talked to some academics who have shared some like queer theory and that sort of thing too. I think like Bond is such a weird example because in so many ways he is like hyper masculine. It's like every movie is about like, oh, the Bond girl and who's he going to like sleep with and that sort of thing. And I was never into it on that level, even at a young age. I think for me, it was just this idea that he could move so freely throughout the world. I think there's certainly something to that in the way that he was so confident and could carry himself, and just the way he could move through spaces confidently. I think I saw something that I idolized, and it felt emblematic of how I wanted to be and carry myself. Now, like, there are certain things to Bond that are like terribly, terribly misogynistic over the years, but like that was never it. There was that side of it, and then there was the camp of it, especially the ones in the 70s are so campy, and I think that I was drawn to just how silly and goofy they were. And there's something, I think there's some, queerness and this like pure idea of camp are pretty inextricably tied to. So I think that there's something to that too.
I honestly, I think I've seen one James Bond movie. I just can't reference them, So I just wanted to know because, like you said, my perception of James Bond is, hyper masculine, like, straight white male, and I was just trying to figure out what the connection was beyond what I know.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that there's a lot to unpack. Now that you kind of know that background on Bond, I always am like, I love to jokingly say that Bond made me gay. What, if I were to ask you like what feels like instrumental to your identity now, like something that you grew up with that it feels instrumental to you?
Um, hmm. Maybe in your same obsession with, sorry about the plane, I live near the airport.
Don't worry.
Maybe, I guess, in terms of growing up, immediately my mind goes to Halle Berry. I was obsessed with Halle Berry, like would literally risk it all for Halle Berry. And so I followed her career. Any movie, she did a television series, Their Eyes Were Watching God with Oprah on ABC. And I begged my great grandma to let me stay up and watch it. I think because it came on at 9 and I was supposed to go, I don't know what, but somehow I saw it. And, I think that she felt powerful to me, and I guess in the same allegory type of circumstance, I would say that, I didn't even know my personal sexuality then. I knew that I had this slight obsession with this woman, and it might might be something to it, but I didn't know, at that time. I just thought that, I see this actress who is powerful in so many ways. I know she had, endured things in relationships and stuff like that, and she had taken back her power in those regards and really excelled in her career. And, being the second Black woman to win an Oscar as lead actress, the speech that she gave, referencing all the women that came before her was very impactful to me. And I don't know. I just was like, I like Halle Berry. Like Halle Berry was like, all right, I'll do X, Y, or Z, but pay me. You know what I'm saying? Like, give me my money. And I was like, yes, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, value yourself for, it could be some obscene number, you know what I'm saying? Like, you got to value yourself, and that's what I think I took from looking at Halle Berry. And then, I mean, she's gorgeous, of course. You know, I used to go to Hollywood.com, her website, like every single day. And back then, pictures didn't change unless she had a movie going on. So I just used to look at the same pictures every single day, to the point where my mom was like, why do you go to this website every day? And I thought I was caught. Like, I don't know. Like, I didn't know why I was caught, but I felt caught. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I remember being like, it's because she just won an Oscar and I want to be an actress. And my mom was like, okay. you know, yeah, I thought that she had successfully maneuvered through different social spaces as well, in terms of, I saw her in Black movies, or movies that were centered around Black people, and probably the biggest audience was Black people. And then, you could see she could go from Baps and Losing Isaiah to Swordfish and X-Men. You know what I'm saying? I was just like, wow, like, you are fluidly accepted. Like, same thing, like you said, Bond was fluidly accepted through the world. That's kind of how I felt about Halle Berry. I was like, she is fluidly accepted through society, and compensated for her talent to do so.
I absolutely, like, right, with broadly the idea of Bond, and for you with Halle, it's like maybe there's some element of them that we see ourselves in, but then we also see them, right, being able to move throughout the world in this way and still carry themselves with their full self, to give their full self to everything. I think that's something we obviously emulate. And funny connection, Halle Berry was in Die Another Day. She was in a Bond.
Oh,
She
yes.
was a Bond girl, like, which I love that it connected there. And she's like one of the Bond girls that comes in and is like, oh shit, like she can kick ass too. Like that didn't really happen until like the 90s, 2000s Bonds, but
that's what I'm saying. I didn't see the movie, but I remember her walking out of the water in that burnt orange bathing suit. Like, that's iconic, just as much as Bond, the Bond girls play a significant role in making those movies significant as well. So that's what I'm saying. Like, she's just been able to be malleable,
mm-hmm.
And I like that a lot.
That's a great way to put it, of course. Do you well, one, I'm clocking your shirt, which is great. And you've been the second person I've talked to for this that has worn a Selena shirt while we've done this interview. So I love that as a theme already. Does Selena's music mean a lot to you then?
Yeah, I wasn't exposed to Selena until I saw Jennifer Lopez in the movie Selena. And then I just got obsessed, honestly, with her history and her. I'm like, wow, like, how did I not, I don't know. I live with my great grandparents. We listen to mostly gospel music anyway, but I was like, wow, I felt left behind, honestly, because I caught on to her story afterwards, you know what I'm saying? But the movie really spoke to me. Her music is incredible, and she seemed to be a very very kind and, very obviously a significant addition to the Hispanic community in terms of music. And I don't know, she was just amazing. Like, she had an incredible spirit, like from what I've seen during like YouTube searches and stuff like that. Of course I can quote lines from the movie. Like, it's just, I don't know, I think I saw the shirt and I thought it was dope, and she's gorgeous, and I think it's cool.
Who was maybe the first like pop star you were aware of?
Pop star. It's funny you say that. I was really into Bow Wow. That's who, my mom, she would let us rock with the kid, B2K, Bow Wow, and those,
yeah, a little more family friendly, right?
Yeah, or whatever residual music I could get from my stepdad. So my stepdad introduced us to old school music. Like, the first concert I ever went to was the Isley Brothers and Earth, Wind and Fire. So I love that type of music as well. But yeah, like I would say the first pop person I saw was Bow. That's the first. I remember seeing Bow Wow on TV and being like, he's my age. He's like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he got this dope rap song. But when I was staying with my great grandparents, I would say Kirk Franklin. Yeah, when Stomp came out, they would let us play Stomp all day. So I lived with my great grandparents up until I was in the 4th grade, and then I moved with my mom. And so it was, different generations. You go from great grandparents to your mom, you know what I'm saying? So it's just like, my mom would let us listen to Uncle Luke, like, oh, ride that train. I was just like, okay, but at my grandparents' house, it was Clark Sisters. It was, Kirk Franklin was about as hip hoppy as we could get.
Yeah, but I mean, like with Kirk and the Clark sisters, you can obviously start to draw that connection between more traditional gospel music and pop music, like you said. So it's like you kind of had those steps into it then, which is interesting.
Exactly. Yes, they would give us a little leeway. I was so grateful for Kirk Franklin coming out with Stomp. Like, that was the first time I was like, I love this gospel song, and it's approved.
Yeah, it's approved. I like the idea of, I think this kind of came up when you brought up Halle Berry and wanting to see their eyes were watching God. It's kind of come up a few times in these, and I think this is true for anybody at all, but, so often there's this, like, to use the broad term again, pop culture that we know, especially when we're younger. It's like, okay, this isn't meant for kids, but I want to be part of that world. I want to see what this is. Maybe there's just something to that wanting to seek out culture that we feel like maybe we're not the intended audience for too, that I think is so fascinating. Mm-hmm. And like you becoming a fan at a younger age of the Isley Brothers, like from a different generation, like there's something to that too. You felt like connected to this, and I think that's so fascinating.
Yeah, I would say that great art is great art, and it'll just be timeless. It's the reason why we still study Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci, and because they just did great art. I look at like Earth, Wind and Fire. I think they have like one album, and they've been touring on that for the last 30 years. You just things. That's a great thing about creating a good story, is that it can be fluid through time. And that's when you created something special, I think, for sure.
Yeah.
But a lot of my childhood, I fought it. I didn't want to like old school music, but my stepdad made us listen to it. He was like, no, I'm driving. I'm listening to what I want to listen to. And after a while, you be like, damn, this do kind of bop a little bit, I didn't see any characters on TV. I think the first time it intrigued me to see Queen Latifah and Set It Off playing Cleo, I remember sitting in my grandma's living room, and it was like a family night for whatever reason. Like, the whole family was there watching, and I remember seeing her and identifying with it, but not being like, I'm not quite Cleo. You know what I'm saying? Like, but the fact that these are two women and they're together and they look like they love each other, and that was the first time I saw a representation of two Black women in love on screen for me. And, other than that, I can't say. I think that I tried to find relations in male and females, on television. Even like Bow Wow, you know what I'm saying? I remember one time I had my hair braided and my grandma was like, you look like that little boy Bow Wow. And I remember thinking, damn, she think I look like Bow Wow? You know what I'm saying? Like, I ain't say it out loud, but in my mind, so I was constantly, finding little pieces of people that I liked and being like, I want to be something like that, because I didn't see anyone who fully represented me in my whole stream, you know what I'm saying? Stream of being, I'm not, I don't know. It was like, then I saw Spike Lee's She Hate Me. And that was the first time that I saw two feminine women in a relationship, and that was a very complex storyline. But overall, two women, And I was like, okay, so I'm somewhere in between that and Cleo. You know what I'm saying? Like on a spectrum. You know what I'm saying? And I think that was it resonated with me. Um, and I think that a lot of women who are in the LGBTQ community can identify with that, especially because as a woman, you probably gonna go through the stage where at some point you are trying to be more feminine, and if you're a more masculine presenting woman, somebody puts you in lace and frills at some point in your life. You know what I'm saying? Regardless, somebody put you in pink, and you know what I'm saying. So you had to at some point, maybe it was early in your life or later, you transition into a more masculine presentation of yourself. You know what I'm saying? So I think that though you never lose that. Like, I think it's surprising to me. Well, it's not even surprising to me, but some people say, I've heard people say, you're more feminine than I thought you would be. And I'm just like, well, I'm a woman. So thank you. You know what I'm saying? Shit, what else? Yes, I'm more feminine because I'm a woman. You know what I'm saying? Like, and, to society for most of my life, I've adhered to what I thought a woman should be and how a woman should present herself. I got you can't see my knees right now, but I'm sitting, you know what I'm saying, like this. At 15, my mama would have been like, sit back, cross your legs, sit up. You know what I'm saying? Like you're told how to present yourself as a woman, and then you melt into who you really are, and yeah, it's okay to have a balance, and it's okay to be all the things because I've had to be. So it's a part of me. It's not like I'm gonna still wear dresses and heels because I did a lot of that shit and I can't. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I don't know.
We kind of build our identity as like a refraction of all these of the culture and society around us. Like we only pick up on certain things. We're not just a one-to-one comparison to Queen Latifah in a movie. You know what I mean? We're elements of that and so many other things.
Exactly. And personally, I think we as a society put too much emphasis on sexuality or gender and stuff like that, because if you think about how a child develops, you know what I'm saying, like you pick up things from your mother, you pick up things from your father, you pick up habits from your grandfather, you know what I'm saying, like you are a conglomerate of a group of people that raised you. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm a lot like my stepdad. I'm a lot like my dad. I'm a lot like my mom. I have some of my great grandmother's ways as well. And these are all individuals who don't necessarily share the same gender as me or sexuality, or anything. I think that we can't pin people down as to like how, you're supposed to be, I guess. I hope I make sense when I don't know.
No, you totally are. It's amazing to like it's so true. I like this is kind of all what this series is about. It's like so much of this pop culture that is like intended for mainstream audiences. Like it's not, there's so much to be pulled from it. It's not any one thing. And I like that as like broadly as a queer community, so many of us were able to find bits and pieces of ourselves in these things and feel some sense of comfort.